Donato Carrisi is considered by many to be the master of the Italian thriller, with books capable of plunging the reader into a dark and intriguing world. In particular, in this video, we will analyze the novel Into the Labyrinth and its movie adaptation, also directed by Carrisi. Into the Labyrinth is the writer's 8th novel, published in 2017, and is the 3rd installment in the Mila Vasquez series of thriller novels, preceded by The Vanished Ones, published in 2013, and followed by Il gioco del suggeritore, published in 2018, which still hasn't been translated in English. Starting from the plot, we can guess the complexity of the story. In fact, the books follows the story of Samantha Andretti, a 13-year-old girl whose life goes exactly as it should. However, her life takes an unexpected turn because one day Samantha disappears into thin air. At this point, Carrisi transports us 15 years forward to the moment when Samantha miraculously reappears, thanks to an anonymous phone call in the middle of the night. And so, the girl who until a few pages earlier was a mere teenager is transformed into a traumatized and wounded 28-year-old woman who, from her hospital bed, finds herself unsure how she managed to escape from the clutches of her captor. From now on, the hunt for the monster begins. Here comes Bruno Genco, a dodgy and secretive private investigator who decides to take over the case in parallel with law enforcement. His decision to devote himself to the hunt for the men of the labyrinth is motivated by several reasons. First, Genco knows that this will be his last case, since he is suffering from a terminal illness and his life is slowly but surely ending. But above all, he feels he must make up for a mistake he made 15 years earlier. The first clues will come to him from the Limbo, the shadowy missing persons bureau headed by Mila Vasquez, but run for several weeks by Deputy Simon Barish because she is untraceable. In the course of the book, another character appears, Dr. Green, a profiler who is in charge of investigating the traumatized and fragmented mind of Samantha, who remembers nothing of the day of the abduction, except that she was taken by a giant rabbit. We thus come to discover that the girl has been a prisoner of Bunny, a man who has never taken off his rabbit mask and has subjected her to sadistic games. The novel immediately begins with eerie atmosphere, and the adrenaline rises with each chapter, involving the readers more and more and throwing them in an undefined place and an indefinite time for the duration of the book. There is the reference to typical elements of thriller and horror literature, such as the presence of symbolic objects like puppets and mirrors that create sequences in which nothing is as it seems. As is typical of Carrisi, the story turns totally upside down a few pages from the end, destroying the few certainties the reader had created along the way. These eerie atmospheres are the highlight of the movie adaptation of the novel, released in 2019, and we must say that a great virtue of Carrisi is precisely his ability to transfer into images what came from his pen, with scenes that fully mirror those in the book. The author and director thus leads us into his labyrinth, disorienting and confusing us like Bunny, the rabbit with 2 red hearts for eyes, only to show us the true face of the story hidden in plain sight before our eyes. In fact, it is only after various events, including Genco's death, that the reader/viewer discovers that the girl in the hospital and the woman that allegedly was Samantha are actually 2 separate people. Samantha, now unable to interact with others, had been held captive in a barge, while the woman on the hospital bed is none other than investigator Mila Vasquez, kidnapped and imprisoned in the labyrinth that contains a fictitious hospital room. The man she spoke to, and who is posing as Dr. Green, is not a police profiler, but a sadist who has kept her locked up for over a year, making her believe she is Samantha. During that time, he had continued to administer psychotropic drugs to her that induced uninterrupted hallucination, in a perverse game that began each time the woman sensed the truth. Finally, however, in a moment of clarity, the woman is able to realize who she really is and that she has been kidnapped, confronts her captor, and locks him in the labyrinth, managing to escape. The last sequence of the movie shows in an earlier period a chance contact by Jenko with what would turn out to be the policewoman's kidnapper, to whom he suggests the answer to the definition required by a crossword puzzle. In conclusion, in Carrisi's stories, one must get lost. Everything is foggy, almost intangible, and difficult to focus on. The book, as well as the movie, goes down a path that almost doubles the narrative by telling the events in parallel. However, the movie adaptation failed to fully convey the state of tension that the book generates, probably because of the lack of the surprise effect in the ending.